Hey, lovelies. Esther here, the tarot reader formerly known as Lisa. Yeah, I've changed my name. I have cut my hair, since some of you have seen me, perhaps. Same gal. Package is pretty much the same. Label slightly different. And I have a whole video about the name change. I'll link to that below. But anyway, hi. Welcome to 2021, already in progress. Yeah, if 2020 was the year that felt like a decade, this first week of 2021 is the week that felt like a year. And here we are. And in fact, I want today to do a thing that I do every year around this time. I usually don't get around to it until after the year has turned. I usually get around to it in January. But that is to pull a Wheel of Life spread. Now, the thing about the Wheel of Life spread, some folks call this kind of work the year ahead spread, but really for me, the idea behind pulling 12 cards and a theme card for the year is not so much to kind of forecast what's going to happen month by month, but really to give us a kind of mandala, a kind of sacred map of how our life is unfolding moment by moment throughout the year, and to give us a kind of anchor to keep coming back again and again and again to the prompting of the cards, to sink in through the cards to this life as it's emerging. Now, in that work, some really wild things may happen that in fact do start to feel like divination, like, oh my God, how did the cards know this? But, I don't rule out that there's a correspondence between temporal unfolding and what the cards allow to unfold in our hearts and our minds. I don't rule that out. But if that does occur, if there is some kind of reflection between the events of this life as we observe them and what the cards unfold, it is because what tarot is and has always been is a map of the interconnection between this little package, this little self, and the great big world. What the 78 unfold, and the cards do it very explicitly in the major arcana, in the movement from the Fool to the World. What the 78 cards unfold is the way in which the minutia, the microcosm of self, is completely interpenetrated and interconnected with the macrocosm of world. And the tarot also helps us find that connection. So a case in point, and I'm filming this as a Zoom recording, so I get to do this really cool thing of woohoo! Well, it might not be so cool. Shoot. This working? Share. Oh, hold on. Haha. This really cool thing. There we go. I think this is working. Of a PowerPoint. Okay, maybe that's not so cool. But in the world of tarot videos, this feels really extraordinary. So this is my Wheel of Life spread from 2019. And some of you may remember, in June of 2019, I did a full 30 days of focusing on the Tower, which was my card for June. And I did 30 videos about the Tower, interpreting the Tower, looking at the Tower through other decks, unfolding it. And, it was for me an example of how the Wheel of Life spread, when we start to lean into it as a prompting to further explore this kind of mindful tarot exploration of this heart, this life, this mind, the cards giving us kind of traction for self-discovery when we're reading for ourselves, or guided discovery for a querent that we're reading for. When we start to do that, amazing things happen. So, I was freaked out to see the Tower in my spread, and I had to understand it. Now, that was June of 2019. In July of 2019, I really actually did have a Tower event happen. It was, a big thing in my family. And I won't go into details because the story is not solely mine to tell, but it was huge. It was about as cataclysmic as one can go through. Nobody died and nobody got seriously ill, but it was big. So I spent all of June thinking about the tower, and then in July, I experienced the tower. It was like the cards were enabling me to explore what I have come to think of as the savage grace of calamity. You know, the fierce grace of when shit falls apart. I spent 30 days thinking about what happens when your world crumbles. And then my world seemingly crumbled. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So the cards, I guess what I want to say is mindful tarot doesn't mean the tarot doesn't actually show us things about the world around us. In fact, when we're really mindfully tuning in to the cards, we can't help but find a guidance and find a reflection of the whole world. And sometimes that looks like Twilight Zone, woo-woo, oh my God. Wow, how did the tarot know this? Well, the tarot knows this because this and that are not separate. And the tarot teaches us about the interconnection of all things. Okay, that's one thing I wanted to share. I want to go back to my PowerPoint and show you last year's Wheel of Life spread. Lots of beautiful things. I've gotten nervous about July because bad stuff has happened in July every year, pretty much forever. July is my dark year, so it was, a tower year. July is my dark month. It feels like a year. And then last year I had the devil. So one of the things I was thinking about in July last year is the patterns that enslave us, the ways in which we're caught up in. Buddhists would call it sort of the dependent origination, the ways in which we're caught up in a kind of interlinking series of things as one thing arises and leads to the next. And how do we break free of what seems inevitable? But the thing that really got my goat, as it were, that's a stupid, wild unknown joke because the devil is a goat. Okay, never mind. The thing that got my goat last year in my Wheel of Life was what happened in November. In November, I had the Nine of Swords, the anxiety card. And I remember when I was filming this video last year, making a joke about, oh, November, election, and in fact, certainly for most of us in the United States, but I think this has ripples all through the world. It has been craziness, and the election was crazy, and craziness continues and ensues, and all manner of anxiety might be arising from, the events of November 3rd and the events preceding and succeeding that day. But really, here's where the sort of the relationship between the microcosm and the macrocosm of the tarot is so important. What happened for me, especially in November, was I found myself prompted by the cards and prompted by events, but I found myself diving in super deeply into an exploration of my own lifelong struggle with anxiety. What is anxiety? I wanted to ask myself that. What is my anxiety? How does it arise? How does it manifest? What revs it up? What soothes it? What is it really? Do I even know what my anxiety is? So I started to seriously explore. I mean, I have explored it in the past, but to find new ways to explore anxiety, right? And to do so at a time in the middle of pandemic, in the middle of political mayhem, in the middle of the rendering explicit and the chickens coming home to roost of certainly my country's legacy of racism, violence, suppression, all of that. What is the personal arising of anxiety, and how does it relate to the world around me? And this brings me back, that's the Kim Krans anxiety card. This brings me back to something I want to say about the tarot, about nines and their relationship to tens. So specifically thinking about how number works in tarot and how number works in the minor arcana, how number works in pips. So one of the things we see in the nines of all four minor suits, the Nine of Swords, the Nine of Cups, the Nine of Pentacles, the Nine of, what I leave out, Wands, is a kind of culmination of the energy of that suit, but a culmination that's really self-centered, that's resting in the self. So whatever the energy of the suit is, in the 9 card, we see that energy coming into fruition, but locked in this little package of self, this little microcosm of self, as if the self is the be-all and end-all of everything, right? So in the 9 of Swords, the swords, that suit of mind, of thought, of discernment, of decision-making, what happens when we take that energy, that airy energy, that swords energy, and we culminate it in the self? All of the energy of mind and thought and discernment, it's locked in self. Well, this is one way to understand anxiety. I'm trapped in the treadmill, in the what do you call that? Is that treadmill? You know, the thing that the wheel that hamsters run on, right? I'm trapped in that wheel of myself. My mind just churning. But here's where it's important to remember how number and succession and movement works in the tarot. And how 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, how the wheel of number goes round. The tarot is so much about the movement and progression of life in this step-by-step way. The wheel of life, a movement one step at a time as each thing relates to the next. So that culmination of the energy of the 9, right, in the anxiety card, goes one notch further when it hits the 10. And the 10s of every suit show us a kind of overcoming of the energy of the suit in self, a kind of transcending of self. Now in the pointy suits, in the suits like the swords and the wands, the suits of individuation and individualism, the suits of ego and I and self, that transcending of self feels tragic, right? It feels like the black sky of the 9 moving into the even blacker outlook of the 10, that overkill of the 10 of Swords. But in the round suits, in the suits that are more classically, generically female, feminine, in their receptive nature, the suit of Pentacles, the suits of Cups, the culmination of the energy of earthly Pentacles, material, embodied energy in the 9 of Pentacles, that feels like living in my garden, being at the height of my luxury, having my safe haven, my home for me. And then how does that get transcended? How do we move beyond the self in the Pentacles? Well, we move into the world of family, of legacy, of intergenerational achievement. And the Kabbalistic tree of life here gives a kind of esoteric reading to that transcendence of the self in terms of the movement of creation. The 9 of Cups, similarly, the 9 of Cups, often thought of as the wish card, wish fulfillment card, you know, that drinking deep, that you know, fat and sassy figure. He's got it all. The cat that drank the cup of milk. What is it? There's a saying about that. Anyway, he's got it all, right? For the self. The transcendence of that moment of the self looks like the covenant, the rainbow, the covenant between the generations, between us and the divine. It looks like family again. It's community. It's an overcoming of the energies, the watery, relational, spiritual, emotional energies of the cups. It's a transcendence of the self that takes that into not just satisfaction for me, but that kind of overabundance of joy that transcends. my selfhood, in the name of community, in the name of my relationship with family and with the divine. But in the pointy suits, right, the culmination of the energy, the fiery, willful, warrior-like, vigorous energy of the wands, the overcoming of that, I've got it, I will fight them off, becomes just the sense of oppression. The self buckles under the energy of the suits, in the pointy suits, in the swords and the wands. And that buckling under, which may not be fun to live through, that buckling under is actually a deep gift. It's another version of the tower, right? Of the overcoming of the self's delusions and illusions in the name of greater growth. It's a moment of grace. So that nine of swords that I had in November, it was about me, and it was about the election, and it was about the pressing need to move beyond the narrowness of this little heart. I think that's what anxiety ends up being about. Anyway, those are some of the thoughts that I have about last year's and the year before's readings, and also about how to use this wheel of life spread as a way to sink into our moment by moment experience of our life, but also find ways to notice how this life of mine is always responding to and being read into by the greater world. And the tarot can help me see those connections, make sense of that. Particularly helpful when you're living through times that feel like everything is, headlines 5 feet tall, when you feel like you're living in this really big time, trying to find a connection between myself and that big time, trying to find a place for myself to be at ease. This is one way to use the wheel of life spread. So, without further ado, I have my Wild Unknown deck here, and I've shuffled it, but I'm going to shuffle it some more. I lit some incense earlier. I lit candles on my my altar. By the way, that's my main altar, and next to it is a painting of my mom from when she was 3 years old, and then that's got decks in it, and then one of my sitting cushions and my Zen vestments, my religious garb. So all sorts of fun things. Another sitting place there. Yeah, and I'm surrounded by Buddhas and, and tarot cards and meditation cushions and little tchotchkes, little objects. Okay. So let's begin with the theme card for the year. And I'm not going to worry about reversals with this. Oh, okay. I think my theme card last year was the Empress, or no, that was my December card. The Emperor is my soul card, so that's interesting. Stability, stability, structure. I think I'm ready for taking the growth and transformation of the past few years and solidifying that. Okay, the Emperor. January, the month we're already in. Whoops. Okay, so we've got the Seven of Pentacles. Okay. A time for, for patience, for the unfolding of things. That feels right to me. It feels like this is a time where things are unfolding, and, I'm trying to make peace with my earth energy. I often think of myself as not being earthy at all because I'm, in my head, and and then I've got all this fire and all of this kind of wandsy stuff. And then, I'm a chaplain, and a spiritual counselor. So that watery and a poet sort of type, But earth, where's that? And lately I've been thinking, oh my God, my anxiety, first of all, is all about earth energy. And I've been realizing that. So Seven of Pentacles and unfolding process. Okay. Ace of Cups for February. Wonderful. Yeah. Just all of that watery flow, that watery goodness, um, love, soul, relationship, the foundation, the seed of all that, the potential of all that. Oh, okay. So we've got the Nine of Pentacles. All right. A lot of Pentacles. I'm hesitating with the nine. It's a lovely card and one that I'm happy to get, but I always hesitate with these nines because there's a sense of limitation, potentially limited into the self. Okay, so we've got January, February, March, April. Oh, Three of Cups. Community. Community, celebration. This particular version of the Three of Cups, because it seems like is it sunset? It always feels sunsetty to me. So it always has a little mournful quality in this deck, even though there's nothing mournful about this card. But it can feel like a yearning for community. Okay, January, February, March, April, May. Okay, another nine, right? The Nine of Wands here, which in this deck, the nine, that sense, this deck puts the emphasis on kind of that valor, that overcoming of crisis. Like we're moving toward the light. There's a kind of optimism in it. Sorry. Speaking of light, there we go. Right. A sense of movement forward. The movement forward in the wands doesn't necessarily look so fabulous because there's still this sense of how do I take my fiery, responsive energy and really find it anchored in source. Fire without water, without that watery depth. Fire without water paradoxically burns out. I love this version of the Seven of Swords. This version of the Seven of Swords taught me more about the swords, this card than any other deck. Because it taught me that this card, which can be understood to be about deceit and concealment and theft, right? If you think about the Rider-Waite image of it, of the goofy guy stealing away from the camp, with carrying the swords, leaving two behind, but carrying a stack of swords with him. This version of it made me realize, oh no, this card can be about restraint. Like, you don't have to tell everyone everything. You get to keep some of it in. And that might be both about being strategic, but also about real self-care. Like, not everyone needs to be up in your face and know all your business. I tend to be a blurter. I tend to tell everyone everything there is to know about me, which is not always skillful or healthy or fair or loving or kind. It may feel like it's honest, but sometimes it's not even honest to tell everyone everything, right? Because it can manipulate the situation. Okay, we've got January, February, March, April, May, June, July. Well, that's not a July card now, is it? That's a lovely card for July. Okay. 10 of Pentacles. Maybe I'll break through my July, what do you call it? My July, I don't want to call it a curse, but my July thing. So much bad shit in July, but all of it has really actually led toward transformation. Grace, overcoming of narrowness. So, 10 of Pentacles, beautiful card for that. Okay, August. Well, that's nice. The High Priestess. Yeah. September. God, it's hard to imagine September 2021. Think about how much has changed in the past year. Where will we be in September? Well, maybe we'll be balancing everything still, I love this version of the Two of Pentacles. Two of Pentacles often feels like that kind of yin yang balancing act. How do we dance in the middle of life's ebbs and flow? This version to me reminds me of how of this moment of transformation. I mean, it's the butterfly in that sense of emerging from the chrysalis, but it's that way in which transformation requires a kind of doubleness. Both wings have to move. We have to be able to not just let go of what we were before, but somehow be able to be here now, but also be where we were before in order to move forward. Nothing gets left behind. So a sense of the chrysalis and the butterfly emerging, and then a sense of how flight requires both wings. There's a beautiful Rumi poem about that, which I'm not going to be able to remember, actually. But it's about letting go and holding on. It's about change. The Two of Pentacles is always about change, but about somehow being able to move gracefully with change, to dance with it. Okay. Father of Swords. Yeah. Coming into one's own with mind, understanding, discernment. The swords for me are not just about rational mind, but about the mind that can see all the possibilities, that can see clearly, can see the many-sidedness of life. And the Father of Swords, the King of Swords, he's able to wield the sword that cuts both ways, that sees both sides, the sword of justice. He's able to wield that sword with mastery, which means great, it means wisdom, right? So the Father of Swords in January, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October. Now we're moving into November of 2021. And remember, for me, the Wheel of Life is about, tracking through the year, but each moment is also recapitulating all moments. So, we're moving through the year one step at a time, but it's like the mandala of tarot itself. Each part is also a fractal kind of holographic vision of the whole. You know what I mean? And the Four of Pentacles. Now, in this deck, the Four of Pentacles, which can, in the sort of Pixie's vision of it for the Waite Smith deck, the Four of Pentacles feels like this kind of miserly holding reserve, right? But the four is like the four of the Emperor, the fourth trump. It's the card of stability. So in this deck, right, that four has more of a sense of balance, a sense of kind of beautiful harmony and symmetry, a sense of structure, right? Now, whether that structure is constricting, whether that structure is oppressive or not, that may be a separate question. The Emperor can be oppressive, my theme card for the year. The Emperor can be oppressive, my soul card. I very much identify with that four Emperor energy. Can be oppressive, but can also be about building things. It can be the four posts of the Four of Wands. It can be home. It can be having arrived. It can be refuge. And this is December. Oh, beautiful. The Daughter of Cups. I've had, my cards have really emphasized the Daughter of Pentacles, the Page of Pentacles in the Waite Smith deck, a card that I associate with my my soul dog, Homer, who died in 2018. So I've had a lot of Page of Pentacles, as I think I'm making peace with my earthiness, with my embodiment, and the fact that actually I am embodied. Daughter of Cups, Page of Cups has been a card that's been kind of stalking me for a few months. I've been finding myself really resonating with it. Okay, so that's my Wheel of Life spread for 2021. I just want to share one last slide. I want to invite you guys to really join the Mindful Tarot community. There's a Facebook group. And then I will be beginning this month a Zoom meeting. Fair warning, there may be PowerPoint. There will be some like me sharing stuff, like information, like here's some ideas I have, but then also a chance to talk with each other, to really, like what Zoom allows us to do, to talk to each other, to see each other's faces, although you don't have to be on camera if you don't want. To break out into small groups, etc. So I will be holding these Zoom Mindful Tarot meetups on the third Sunday of every month. That's my plan. It's completely free. This is just a chance for me to hang out with you guys virtually, and it will be at noon Pacific time. So that kind of sucks if you live somewhere like Finland, but hopefully it kind of works. Noon Pacific time. Now, we're on standard time right now. I think I always get confused about daylight savings time, but just Google it and you'll figure it out. If you're interested in joining the Mindful Tarot community, just drop me an email and I will add you to the list. You can reach me at Esty, ESTY, at mindfultarot.org. Okay, guys. As always, thank you so much for your practice. It's lovely to be with you, even in this weird, weird virtual way. Blessings to you all. Thank you again.